They came in fleets, mighty and invincible. And yet, not a single one returned. For centuries, the most powerful armadas in the galaxy had set their sights on Earth. Some came to conquer, others to investigate. None were ever seen again. No wreckage, no distress signals, just silence. The Zervath Empire had watched in growing unease. A species as primitive as humans should not have been capable of defending themselves against interstellar warlords. Their planet held no known superweapons, no planetary shields, no fleets of their own. And yet, Earth remained untouched, a cosmic paradox. Commander Rhynak stood at the bridge of his warship, Zarek Thul, staring at the blue-green world on the view screen. His fleet of 100 warships, each one powerful enough to annihilate a planet, hung in formation around him. He had led conquests across countless systems, but this mission unsettled him. The Zervath had sent fleets before. All had vanished without a trace. Rhynak had been given one order: find out why. A cold voice crackled through his communicator. Commander, we are approaching Earth's exosphere. No resistance detected. That was expected. The humans had nothing that could challenge them. Rhynak exhaled slowly, gripping the armrest of his command chair. He wouldn't make the mistake of underestimating them, not until he knew what had happened to the others. Initiate orbital scan. Deploy scout probes. I want full spectrum analysis, Rhynak ordered. The bridge hummed with efficiency as the crew carried out his commands. Streams of data scrolled across the holographic displays. Commander. A hesitation from the sensor officer. Report. I'm not detecting anything unusual, sir. No advanced technology, no defense grid. The planet is exactly as intelligence reports describe. Rhynak frowned. He expected something. Anything. Instead, Earth looked painfully ordinary. Then, the lights on the bridge flickered. Sir. Systems are fluctuating. We're losing power. Impossible. Identify the source. Before the officer could respond, a deep, low-frequency hum filled the air. The warship trembled. Rhynak turned sharply toward the view screen. His blood ran cold. The ships were vanishing. One by one, his fleet, hundreds of ships, each a fortress of firepower, began dissolving into nothingness. Not exploding. Not imploding. Just, ceasing to exist. Crew members screamed as consoles flickered, their very voices distorting, as if space itself was rejecting them. Abort mission. Full retreat. Rhynak never finished the order. A pulse of invisible energy ripped through the bridge. The walls warped, the stars outside twisted, and then blackness. Silence. Oblivion. Nothingness. Silence. Then, pain. Commander Rhynak gasped as consciousness returned. He wasn't on his ship. The metallic scent of burnt circuits and ozone filled the air. His limbs felt heavy, his body weak. His head pounded as though reality itself had cracked and reassembled around him. Where am I? He forced his eyes open. Blinding white lights pierced his vision. He was lying on a cold, smooth surface. The room was featureless, sterile. He turned his head and saw several of his crew scattered around him, unconscious. Some twitched, groaning as they stirred. He pushed himself up with effort. His armor felt intact, but his weapons were gone. His communicator was dead. Panic rose in his chest. This isn't my ship. This isn't Zervath technology. A hiss filled the air. A doorway, one that hadn't been there before, slid open with an eerie smoothness. And then, they walked in. Humans. 3 of them. A man and 2 women, clad in simple uniforms. No visible weapons. Their expressions were calm. Unbothered. Almost, knowing. Reinach, second in command, Varric, groaned beside him. "Commander," he muttered. His eyes flicked to the humans, narrowing. "How?" Reinach had no answer. No Zervath fleet had ever failed like this. No enemy had ever captured him. The man in the center stepped forward, hands folded behind his back. He was older, gray streaks in his dark hair, lines of experience etched into his face. His eyes, though, held something dangerous. "He is not afraid of us," Reinach realized. "He pities us." The man tilted his head slightly. "You're confused." "I understand." His voice was even, unhurried. "Your kind has come to this planet many times. You are not the first. You will not be the last." Reinach bared his teeth. You destroyed my fleet." The man shook his head. "No." One of the women, younger with sharp blue eyes, stepped forward. "They were never here to begin with." Varric let out a sharp breath. "Lies." The older man sighed, then gestured toward the far wall. It shimmered, revealing a window. What Reinach saw made his breath catch. Earth. Or rather, what was left of it. The planet was still there, but it looked different. Twisted. Fractured. Like it existed in layers. The continents shimmered, as if multiple versions of Earth were overlapping, flickering in and out of sync. A deep pit formed in Reinach's stomach. His mind screamed that something was wrong. The man's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. "Your people have always made the same mistake. You assume Earth is just another planet." He turned, meeting Reinach's gaze. "It's not." Reinach's fists clenched. His mind, trained for war and strategy, rejected what he was seeing. Planets don't flicker. Reality doesn't bend like a mirage. And yet, Earth did. What kind of trick is this? He stepped forward, his towering frame shadowing the older human. "You're playing games. Tell me what you did to my fleet." The older man didn't flinch. Instead, he motioned toward the window again. "Look closely." Reinach did. And for the first time in his life, he felt true, paralyzing fear. His fleet, his grand armada, was there. But not in the way he expected. Hundreds of Zervath warships were scattered across the sky, frozen in different eras. Some appeared ancient, rusted as if they had been abandoned for centuries. Others looked pristine, untouched, still locked in formation. And then, his own flagship, the Zarek Thul, shimmered in and out of existence like a ghost. "This isn't possible," Varric whispered. The older man, who had yet to introduce himself, finally showed the smallest hint of emotion, sympathy. "It's not a game. It's Earth." He turned his gaze to Reinach. "Your fleet never disappeared. It was never destroyed. It was simply absorbed." Reinach's mind raced. Absorbed? By what? He ground his teeth. "I don't believe in magic." The younger woman with blue eyes chuckled. "Neither do we." The older man sighed. "It's not magic. It's something far worse." Reinach glared. "Then explain." The older man finally introduced himself. "My name is Daniel. And you, Commander Reinach, are standing in a place your people were never meant to reach. The prison of time." Daniel gestured to the room around them. "This isn't a ship. It's a pocket." Reinach frowned. "A pocket?" "A fragment. A sliver of time, separate from everything else." Varric muttered a curse. "Impossible. Look at your ship." Reinach turned to the window again. His flagship flickered, appearing in different places, sometimes intact, sometimes wrecked, sometimes as nothing more than scattered debris. His stomach twisted. Daniel nodded, as if reading his thoughts. Your fleet did enter Earth's orbit. But Earth is not linear. The younger woman, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. Have you ever wondered why no advanced species has colonized this planet? Why civilizations collapse and rebuild, but Earth remains? Reinach's pulse quickened. Daniel's voice was calm, but the weight behind it was crushing. Earth doesn't exist in the way you understand. It's not part of time. Time is part of it. Reinach's breathing became shallow. He was a soldier, a conqueror. He had faced death 100 times over. But this was beyond war, beyond weapons, beyond reason. Daniel continued. Your ships aren't gone, Commander. They are still here. Just misplaced. Reinach felt something cold settle in his chest. The Zervath Empire had sent fleets for centuries. And they had never returned. Because they hadn't been destroyed. They had been trapped. The nature of Earth. Daniel sighed. The reason you're still standing here, alive, is because we pulled you out before your ship fractured across time. But the others? He gestured toward the flickering warships in the sky. They weren't so lucky. Reinach could barely think. He had expected resistance. He had expected weapons, an enemy force, some hidden planetary defense. Not this. Daniel studied him. You're starting to understand, aren't you? Reinach's voice was hoarse. There's no way out. Daniel's silence confirmed it. Varric stepped forward. You could have killed us. Why didn't you? Daniel's expression darkened. Because that's not how humanity wins. The younger woman crossed her arms. If we wanted to fight, we'd be long gone. But this is about survival. Daniel nodded. You're not the first conquerors. You won't be the last. But you all make the same mistake. He turned back toward the window, gazing at the flickering warships, the echoes of 1,000 lost invasions. You assume we are weak because we have no fleets, no planetary defenses. He looked back at Reinach. But we don't need them. His next words sent a chill down Reinach's spine. We don't defend Earth. Earth defends us. Reinach's breath felt heavy in his chest. He had expected war, devastation, perhaps even a desperate, last-stand resistance. But this? This was not something he could fight. He turned his gaze back to Daniel, his fists clenching and unclenching. How do we escape? Daniel exhaled, rubbing his temples as if this conversation had played out before. You don't. Varric growled. That's not an answer. The younger woman scoffed. It's the only one that matters. Reinach forced his mind to steady itself. This is just another battlefield. Another strategy. There had to be a solution. If Earth is some kind of time trap, Reinach reasoned, then there must be a way to navigate it. Daniel studied him. You think like a conqueror. Reinach didn't answer. Daniel sighed. There are two ways this ends for you. You can fight and be lost like the others. Or. He trailed off. Varric's fingers twitched toward his holster. Or what? Daniel met Reinach's gaze. Or you can listen. The buried secret. Daniel motioned for them to follow. Reinach hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward. Varric, ever loyal, followed. The younger woman took the lead, guiding them through the strange, dimly lit corridors. The structure around them felt unnatural, not quite a ship, not quite a building. What is this place? Reinach asked. Daniel smirked. An archive. They entered a vast chamber, lined with displays, holograms, artifacts, even ancient tablets. Reinach's eyes scanned them quickly. He recognized some symbols, others were untranslatable. But one thing was clear. These were records of civilizations. Empires. Kingdoms. Species. Lost. Forgotten. Swallowed by time. His stomach tightened. Varric exhaled sharply. This can't be real. Daniel gave him a knowing look. It is. Every species that attempted to take Earth, every empire that saw it as a defenseless prize, ended up here. He gestured to a specific display. Rhynak approached warily. The hologram flickered, revealing a Zervath warlord from centuries past. His armor was rusted, his eyes hollow. The inscription beneath him was in the Zervath language. General Zyros, year 1743 of the Zervath expansion. Rhynak's blood ran cold. Varric inhaled sharply. That's impossible. Zyros led the first invasion centuries ago. Daniel's voice was low. Your empire never knew what happened to him, did they? Rhynak remained silent. Because it was true. The Zervath Empire had believed Zyros was simply destroyed in battle. His fleet lost. No records had ever explained the failure. And now, Rhynak was staring at the truth. Zyros hadn't been destroyed. He had been absorbed into time. The heart of the mystery. Rhynak's mind raced. If this is true, then why are you still here? Why haven't you been erased? Daniel finally smiled. Because we adapted. Rhynak narrowed his eyes. Explain. Daniel led them deeper into the chamber, stopping before a massive, pulsating energy field. It shimmered like a liquid mirror, shifting between colors, occasionally revealing images within, people, places, moments in time. Daniel pointed at it. Earth is more than a planet. It's an anchor. Rhynak frowned. An anchor for what? Daniel's face darkened. For the universe itself. Silence. Rhynak almost laughed. That's ridiculous. Daniel tilted his head. Is it? Rhynak glanced at the flickering warships outside, the ancient records of lost invaders, the Zervath general who should have been dead for centuries. His throat felt dry. Varric finally broke the silence. Then why us? Why bring us here instead of leaving us to disappear? Daniel studied them carefully. Because you have a choice. A frightening truth. The younger woman finally spoke again. Every species that tries to conquer Earth ends up erased. But we, humans, learn to exist with it. Daniel nodded. And now, we offer you the same. Rhynak's fists tightened. You expect me to abandon my people? My fleet? Daniel's voice remained calm, but firm. Your fleet is already gone. A sharp pang of rage shot through Rhynak's chest. No. He refused to accept that. But deep down, he knew it was true. Daniel sighed. The question isn't whether you can save them. It's whether you can save yourself. Rhynak's pulse pounded in his ears. The Zervath Empire had sent hundreds of fleets. And none had returned. Now he understood why. The final decision. Daniel took a step forward. If you resist, if you try to escape, Earth will take you. He pointed toward the pulsing energy field. If you accept, you can survive. You can become something more. Rhynak's heart thundered. The choice was clear. He just wasn't sure if he could make it. Rhynak stood motionless, his mind battling against the impossible truth before him. The faces of his lost fleet haunted his thoughts, their fates sealed by a force beyond his understanding. Was this truly the end of the Zervath's conquest? Varric clenched his fists. There has to be another way. Daniel remained calm, his gaze unwavering. There isn't. The pulsating energy field before them shimmered, warping images of past civilizations, their might, their downfall, their slow erosion from existence. Each image was a cruel reminder of what awaited them if they refused the offer. Rhynak turned toward the younger woman. "You never told us your name." She smirked, arms crossed. "It doesn't matter." "It does to me." A long silence. Then, finally, she said, "Lena." Daniel stepped forward. "Enough stalling. The choice is now. Will you stand against time itself, or will you survive?" A desperate gamble. Rhynak exhaled slowly. "If I say no?" Daniel didn't flinch. "Then you vanish, like the others." The finality of the words sent a chill through Rhynak's spine. Varric shifted beside him. "We fight, then." Rhynak held up a hand, silencing him. He locked eyes with Daniel. "You adapted. That means there's more to this than submission." "How?" Daniel's lips curled into a small smile. "Now you're asking the right questions." He motioned toward the energy field. "Earth isn't just a planet. It's a living paradox. A convergence point of time and space. The moment you step onto its soil, it begins unraveling your past, your future, and even your purpose." Lena added, "Most invaders try to fight it. That's why they disappear." Rhynak frowned. "Then why didn't we?" Daniel's expression darkened. "Because Earth let you see. It let you understand what others never did. It gave you a chance to decide." The weight of those words settled heavily in Rhynak's chest. Varric, ever the warrior, scoffed. "So what do you want us to do? Bow down? Serve humanity?" Lena laughed softly. "Serve? No. But you can become something greater than you were." Rhynak's jaw tightened. "And if we refuse?" Daniel's face hardened. "Then time will take you. And this conversation will have never happened." A betrayal in the dark. Rhynak turned away, his thoughts a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The Zervath Empire had never known defeat, until now. Varric stepped closer. "We need to find the fleet. There has to be something left." Rhynak nodded, determination in his eyes. "We're leaving." Lena's smirk faded. "That's not how this works." Rhynak didn't listen. He activated his wrist communicator, but static filled the screen. His ship, his people, were gone. Varric stepped forward, weapon raised. "We're finding another way." Daniel sighed, disappointed. "I hoped you'd understand." Then the room flickered. The walls shimmered, bending in on themselves. The archive displays vanished, not like a screen turning off, but as if they had never existed. And suddenly, they were standing in an endless void. Rhynak's pulse quickened. "What is this?" Lena's voice was eerily calm. "The moment you chose to resist, the moment you decided to run. Earth decided to erase you." Daniel looked genuinely regretful. "You should have listened." The darkness thickened around them. And then, Rhynak's memories started slipping away. The last stand. Rhynak fell to his knees, gripping his head. No. No. He could feel it, the dissolution of self. His identity, his victories, his failures, all unraveling like a thread being pulled from the fabric of time. Varric roared, lunging forward, but he never reached Daniel. One moment, his presence was there. The next, he was gone. Rhynak gasped, realizing that he no longer remembered Varric's face. He looked down at his own hands. They were fading. So this is how it ends. The Zervath Empire would never know of their failure. They wouldn't even remember him. His existence was being unwritten. Daniel watched with a solemn gaze. This is what happens when you defy Earth. The void pressed closer. Rhynak felt himself slipping. His past. His name. His purpose. Gone. And then. A hand grabbed his wrist. Lena. Her eyes locked onto his, burning with an intensity he didn't expect. Do you want to survive? Rhynak tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Then trust me. With one final pull, she yanked him toward the energy field. The moment his body crossed its threshold, a violent shockwave rippled through his mind. And Rhynak remembered everything. Rhynak gasped as his mind snapped back into focus. The rush of memories crashing into him was overwhelming, his fleet, his battles, his mission. The feeling of near erasure left a deep, lingering fear within him. He had come so close to ceasing to exist. Lena still gripped his wrist, her eyes filled with urgency. Move. Without hesitation, Rhynak followed her, stumbling forward as the darkness behind them collapsed inward. The void was devouring everything that had been. Varric was gone. Rhynak clenched his teeth. His second-in-command, his most loyal warrior, erased. Not dead, not lost. Unmade. His stomach twisted at the realization. There would be no mourning for Varric because there was no one left to remember he had ever existed. And yet Rhynak remained. The energy field pulsed around them, and as they passed through, color and sensation rushed back. They weren't in the void anymore. They were somewhere new. A vast city stretched before them, unlike anything Rhynak had seen. Towering spires shimmered against a violet sky, humming with an energy that felt alive. Earth had revealed its true nature. Daniel was waiting, arms crossed. Now do you see? Rhynak narrowed his eyes. What just happened? Daniel exhaled. The moment you chose defiance, Earth responded. It doesn't tolerate threats. It doesn't negotiate. It erases. Lena stepped forward. But you're different. Earth didn't erase you. It let you see. Rhynak didn't respond immediately. His fists clenched as the full weight of his situation hit him. His fleet was gone. His empire would never know he existed. He had been completely erased from history, except here. And that meant only one thing. He turned to Daniel, his voice hard. Why am I still here? Daniel's lips curled into a knowing smirk. Because Earth isn't done with you yet. The truth about Earth. Rhynak followed Daniel and Lena through the city. The deeper they walked, the more he realized something was deeply unnatural about this place. It wasn't just the architecture, it was the people. Every individual they passed radiated a presence. They felt anchored, more real than anything Rhynak had encountered before. As if the laws of time and space had no hold over them. Daniel gestured around. This is the true Earth. The one hidden from outsiders. Rhynak frowned. A planet can't hide itself. Lena smirked. It can if it's alive. The words sent a chill down Rynak's spine. Daniel continued, his voice calm. Earth is not just a world. It's a being, a force beyond anything your kind understands. It doesn't just exist in space, it exists in time. That's why invaders vanish. They aren't destroyed. They are removed. Rhynak swallowed. Like they never existed. Daniel nodded. Exactly. Earth doesn't fight wars. It rewrites reality. Lena crossed her arms. And yet, for some reason, it chose you. Rynak's mind raced. Why? Why had he been spared when his entire fleet had been erased? Why had Earth let him live? And then a terrifying thought struck him. What if he hadn't been spared? What if he had been rewritten? The choice. Rhynak stopped walking. What am I now? Lena and Daniel exchanged glances. Rhynak pressed on. If Earth rewrites threats instead of destroying them, then what has it done to me? Daniel studied him for a moment before answering. That's up to you. The words sent a fresh wave of unease through Rhynak. Lena stepped closer. You have two choices. You can embrace what Earth is offering and become something more. Or you can fight it, and you'll vanish like the rest. Rhynak scoffed. You expect me to just trust a sentient planet? Daniel smirked. Do you have a choice? Rhynak exhaled sharply. No. He didn't. His empire was gone. His fleet erased. His past rewritten. He was alone in a world that had decided to let him exist, but only on its terms. He looked up at the shimmering cityscape. What had Earth turned him into? And what would he become? Rhynak stood on the edge of something far greater than he had ever imagined. His empire was gone. His people would never remember his name. And yet, he remained. Daniel and Lena watched him closely, waiting for his decision. Rhynak clenched his fists. If Earth rewrote me, then what did it turn me into? Daniel's expression remained calm. Not something different. Something more. Lena took a step forward. You were a conqueror, a warrior who believed strength meant domination. Earth has given you a chance to evolve, to become something greater than just another ruler in a forgotten empire. Rhynak felt a strange pull in his mind, as if something buried deep inside him was awakening. A new instinct. A new awareness. He turned his gaze to the city. It wasn't just a collection of buildings, it was something alive. He could feel the pulse of it, the hum of an intelligence far beyond his own. And then, suddenly, he understood. Earth's true nature. Daniel gestured toward the horizon. Earth isn't just protecting itself. It's preparing. Rynak's eyes narrowed. Preparing for what? Lena's voice was quiet. Something worse than you. The weight of those words settled over him. Humanity wasn't just surviving. It was evolving. Earth wasn't a passive world, it was a guardian, a force that shaped its people for a purpose far beyond mere survival. Every invasion attempt, every lost fleet, every erased enemy, all part of its plan. A plan that now included him. A fate worse than death? Rhynak exhaled slowly. He had spent his life believing in power, in conquest. But now? Power wasn't about taking. It was about becoming. He could fight this. He could resist. But then what? He would disappear like the rest, nothing more than a footnote in a history that had been erased. Or, he could embrace it. He turned to Lena. What happens if I accept? A slow smile crossed her lips. Then you become part of something eternal. Rhynak closed his eyes for a moment. The memories of his past flickered like dying embers. His empire was gone. His people lost. But his future? That was still unwritten. He opened his eyes. Show me. Daniel nodded, and the city pulsed with light. Earth had chosen him. And Rhynak was ready.